maybe it's not about doing more. It's really just becoming aware and seeing what's really already there, just a little bit differently. Welcome back to Illuminating Being. We're here for another episode, another chat with Dr. Summers. And last episode, if you listened, we talked about the body and what happens when we stop listening to it. But I think there's another layer to this because the same disconnection, doesn't just live within us. It's, kind of it shows up between us. And nowhere is that more visible than at the table. The family meals. The table used to be and should still be something more than a place to eat. It's, the space where we slow down, we talk, we learn who we are, by being with our family and friends in our community. But now we eat faster and more alone, more distracted. So we're
Totally.
losing something. And so, Dr. Summers, I want to start here. When you think about shared meals day, what do you feel that we've lost?
Good morning, Dr. Cook. It's just always great to be with you. I feel one of the things that I've been reading about is, this idea of syncing, right? So the synchronicity. And there's an album by a band years ago called Synchronicity. And I think if we
It's one of my
play
favorite
on that
words.
word, and just dating myself, but that is what the table talk, the meal time is all about, is like getting in sync, right? So I think one of the powerful things that we have as parents is that we can basically curate this from the get-go because they are dependent beings, these little ones, whether they're nursing to start with, then they're going to be in their high chair. So we gather around the table and we have this great opportunity to sort of, you know, interact. And those interactions are really fundamentally the building blocks of who these little ones are going to grow to be. And they've got a baseline of starting genetics and stuff that they have been endowed with from their parents, which give them a starting point. But that's just sort of the slate that they begin to build from. And so all of these experiences and those around the table are, I say, ground zero
Right.
for who we're going to become and who we do become. So I think, and it's not all just words, gesticulation, like the mannerisms that we have transmit. So, if as parents we say something and we disagree with our spouses or partners, we may not say it verbally, we may say it visually, in some body movement. The kids are watching.
Right.
I
Like
mean,
if
the
someone,
kids know when you are disagreeing. You don't have to say it.
and so in regards to like the family meal time, just, if there's someone there that's continuously trying to create drive and conversation and sharing of information, and the other players are like not, they're the non-engagement is just as powerful as maybe the sharing.
Right,
It's kind of what you said.
right.
And so like it matters. But I guess, in regards to the disconnectedness of the family mealtime, I, I would say it wasn't intentional that we've kind of lost it. It just kind of drifted away over time. And what do you, I mean, there's one thing that expedites, or maybe you've seen in your experience that creates this replacement of, the family mealtime if there's something involved.
Well, I think that there's no question that technology is sort of the underbelly of distraction, right? So we initially just had radio. You could have a radio in your room. People will listen to it to go to sleep. I mean, I think the sound waves are a little bit different. They can be just as distracting. But I think it was usually a human voice that you were listening to. So I think it didn't have the same, had power, but I don't think it was as determinant in sort of distracting our growth and development. Whereas I think television and screens have taken on a whole new level of, superseding everything else as being sort of babysitter, just, deliverer of messages. I mean, they were big to begin with. They were in the family room. Televisions then got into every kid's bedroom. So that was the beginning of pre-phones. We had televisions in the kids' rooms. Then we had televisions in the kitchens, right? So we had sort of this constant sort of distraction. So instead of like sitting down for breakfast and having the conversation, maybe we watch the news, maybe we watch TV, cartoon or something. So the kids are not connecting with each other or the family members. Not that there isn't a place for some of that. I mean, we used to have, okay, maybe Saturday mornings was cartoons were in the morning, so that would be the morning where we got a gift of watching television. We never had one in our kitchen, but it was it's sort of morphed, right? And I think sort of taking back the power of like being present, being in control. I mean, that is, I think, the number one thing I try to, reflect to parents is that you're in control from day one, determining like who can come and visit you in the hospital when you have your baby. And if you need to say, Dr. Summer said, I need a break, you guys all need to leave. 15 minutes is your, setting some limits, right?
Right.
I mean, how do we set limits? And I think that's helpful,
And
and sort of the trajectory here.
and just thinking about the technology part, kind of um bridging to the story that we were really sharing around the food part. I mean, there is a real pattern here. When we're thinking about, it's not just, it wasn't the evolution of all of this convenience of food. There's also this evolution of technology. It's the evolution of the story told along technology. So like, as each new medium kind of like appeared in our lives, it's progress, it's convenience, it creates connection, it's for
Right,
education, it's and there's just something like we were talking about a lot here is like when and so becoming aware that
right,
there's a deeper story playing out underneath, that more access means more exposure, more convenience means really less agency of oneself. So like thinking about, and you kind of mentioned like the radio appeared in all of our, what I guess it would be our great grandparents or right.
right,
Multiple,
grandparents.
yeah, multiple
Yeah,
generations. Like that was the first like mass voice in a home, and here we are like podcasting and sharing to whoever will listen. But it was sold as education and uh unity of around a community or a national unity. Entertainment. So like we were, yeah. There's like when we look back and now here we are with access to individual devices of each individual family member, making decisions on what they want to watch. Like, because to television and radio, like it was one channel, right? So everyone, at least you had, we're all going to
right,
sit around and watch one set of cartoons, right? Or we're going to like hear one radio station because that was the accessibility. So it became a part of our entertainment and we were sold that it was a window to the world and, you know, but you're together. But
right,
now, right? Like now there's like, so it wasn't like it just abruptly happened. It's then now we're being sold this
right.
access to technology that just gives us
Well,
all of these choices and all of this content and access to global
right.
news. It's just being
Well, I think
aware, I
Yeah, I
guess.
think the words you've spoken, agency. I mean, it's also evolution, right? Alexander Graham Bell. We got the telephone. So, we're talking about connection. So, the telephone allowed us to connect or stay connected when we had relatives distant, like if people moved, right? So they're not always negatives, right? They're not always downsides. There are upsides to these things. Upsides to technology, the upsides to screens. You have family members that are halfway around the world or kids are at college and you can FaceTime them and you can actually see them in their dorm room. That's helpful, right? I
Right.
mean, so it's like
Yeah, it was sold
I
as convenience and connection and
right,
expression.
right. So I
Instant
think it's
access to your distant long family
we're
members.
now using AI. So I try to frame these things that they're tools,
Now we leaped.
right? So
Yeah, now we're using AI.
right. And so and there's a value to that and there's a place for it, right? But we still have to get back to the basics. And the basics are, you know, shout out to KDKA. That was the first radio station here in Pittsburgh, which is where we live. Um, And as you mentioned before, that whole radio, the society all only had a few things to listen to. So everybody was experiencing the same thing. That did create a sort of commonality, community. Now we have thousands of stations and thousands of everything. And so, we're so distracted, right? So I think part of what we're trying to do is to reset things, and get back to some basics. I think a lot of what I see going on is the feeling of being just overwhelmed. Like,
Right. I
how
mean,
do I make any decision because there's just so many things being thrown at me? All these, you Google now, you get AI, you get whatever search you do, thousands of people who purport to be experts, they're just opinion pieces, purporting to be the expert.
and I feel like, I mean, where we've something I do, and it was actually a book that introduced this idea of the birth of the chaotic age. All complex systems are in a state of order and chaos, but something to continuously do as you reflect and then set intentions is, where have we been? Where are we? Where will we head? Where we ought to go? So you're conscious or aware of the decisions, but understanding like this started from somewhere. So like we just kind of went through that. And what I think, and really probably why you and I are showing up, is and all of the voices that are trying to enlighten or bring awareness to this reality of what's happening to like the collapse of our attention span, our inability to, share
Right.
realities even on in your own home at your own family table, because of this like algorithmic programming that we've all allowed, or some of us have, the way our children are being raised, or it's outside the walls of the home. So I feel like we're going to go into like the no hope world, but I think there is
Yeah.
hope because there is this conversation that we're becoming to realize over time is that like we've replaced culture, we replaced it with slowness and family story timing and boredom. And I think you and I like to talk about like nature and whole food and being
Right.
patient. Like that is what we need to like recall to really, I think, get back to the roots of like who we are and why it matters. So like family meals is a perfect
Right.
space for this, and to
Right.
not allow technology at the table, almost allow the absence of it to be a reality of like, I don't know, a lot, but anyway,
Well, I
I
think
just we
we
went
are a
down a deep
reflection of
rabbit hole, but I
we're
mean, I think it's so
yeah.
powerful to ground the conversations, your community, your discussion, your agency with family
Right.
meals.
Yeah, we were out to dinner with a friend I grew up with, and he's in from California. And, we had some interesting conversations, which we always do. And, one of the things that we came up to talking about was sort of like where we are in this world today, all the things that are happening, and the need to sort of not become apathetic, right? Because I think we can be so overwhelmed and feel like there's no hope that we just don't do anything. Right. So I think really as a pediatrician and as a promoter of healthy living, I think, if you get so overwhelmed, you just feel like, what's it going to matter anyway? Then we're going to lose to the big agriculture, the big businesses. So, we can affect them. We can see how change can be affected, and it's affected by finding like-minded people, but also knowing that you have the will and the power to, make change or to be the change. Um, but just knowing you're going to go down these routes, paths to find something, can invigorate, and it also can be contagious. So your table talk, which is really what it's about. And so, we're always trying to engage our kids like, well, what'd you do at school today? Nothing, you know. So, the conversation starter is not going to be what'd you do in school today, right?
Right.
So I think finding the segues, the conversation starters, that bring our kids and our other family members into the conversation, um, are the way we stoke this a little bit more, so that it's foundational, right? I think we do know that not only just family meals and these family times help to offset depression. They help with school performance. Kids just do better
Better.
when they have this grounded sort of mealtime. Because it's not that you're lecturing them on how to do this or what to learn or geography or anything, but it's just this sort of brain sort of being that sort of endears them to sort of like being part of a conversation, honing their listening skills, being present, that then they carry forward subconsciously, right? This isn't a overt, you're gonna do better because I'm having you sit at the table. It's gonna be that over the years sitting at the table, you are participant in a conversation. You're hearing what the parents are talking, you hear what your siblings are doing. You're abstracting things that have an impact beyond just, you do X and Y happens.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's prioritizing these moments in your calendar for multitudes, so not just yourself,
Right,
is not a short-term game,
right,
it's a long-term game. So, that's kinda
right.
so, you're not gonna start having family meals and it all becomes synergistic and kumbaya. I mean, it's the consistency and it's the small moments and, like, if you're people are we're all busy, our schedules are chaotic, and this idea of sitting down together every night, you know, feels probably somewhat out of touch for a large portion of the audience. So, like, I think, going
Right.
back to that, not one change, but one insight or one awareness or one nugget. Like, I
So
think we
I
s-
would
I think we
say
shouted a lot in this
right.
conversation. So, what would that one noticing of a moment that can
So
kind
I
of
would
trigger the
say
change?
the family meal doesn't have to be dinner. So it could be breakfast,
Right.
it could be lunch. And, you know, you can map out your day so when you have your infants and toddlers, your world is different. Once you get into school age kids and you've got activities, you may not be able to have the same sort of rhythm to your day because you're back and forth between activities and things. So you might say, we're going to have, family meal. I know some families have Sunday meals with parents and grandparents and those sort of things. Identify those sort of times. Have breakfast be your family meal. So, like, okay, get our day started well. We're all going to sit down, have our breakfast, whatever it's going to be, connect with each other. What do we have to do today? Lunch, kids are probably not all together as a family, maybe on a weekend, but, so it could be that weekends you have multiple family meal times,
Right.
right? And that during the week you have breakfast, dinner, and maybe you have some sort of pseudo other type of meal expectation that's not everybody sitting together or that it's not like there's a pressure to do this. I feel like you want it to become just part of your rhythm.
Right. And
Eh,
s- and the table then becomes not really about the food. Now the food is a great part of it, but
Right,
it's about this presence, this rhythm. It's about saying, "Hey, we're here together just for a moment." I think it's
right,
really important not only for one individual but those around you to really come back to center. A space that your
yeah.
connection has a return point, which I think, we're all just a big electrical circuit anyway, so you need your grounding.
Well, you being the electrical engineer, I mean, I think there's definitely, and it's the wavelengths. I mean, this is what syncing is all about, right? So I think we do sync. We have inner energies and we transmit those energies in a multitude of ways. And around a table, that's where it happens. It's really the first place it typically happens.
Right. Do you have a book or a quote for this episode?
Yes, I had this book, Why We Click, by Kate Murphy, The Emerging Science of Interpersonal Synchrony. It's just fascinating because we do I think what's happened for us, which is, nice outgrowth, is that there was a syncing, right? So we connected in the doctor-patient family relationship, and we've grown this. And I think it happens, with other families and patients that you somehow make a connection, right? And you have this sort of sense of you know, seeing eye to eye, right? That's the whole thing. Like when people see eye to eye or don't see eye to eye. I mean, there is a lot that happens and the syncing transmits. I think that's to expand this sort of table talk. That's really what families, that's what we do around the table is we sync with our family members,
Right.
right? And we have the spoken word that we transmit, but we have a lot of unspoken gestures and meaning that gets transmitted that doesn't have to be said.
Love it. So, going back to our essence, I don't know if that's the right word, but maybe it's not about doing more. It's really just becoming aware and seeing what's really already there, just a little bit differently. So the idea of grounding oneself, one meal, no distractions. So don't bring the technology to the table, um, because it's those small shifts that really bring us back to what matters, and then allows us to sync with those that are most important to us. And that starts, with
Totally.
the intermediate family, to celebratory meals, to communal meals, and it,
Right.
kind of ripples from there. I love it.
Yeah, and I think gathering, we like to get together, whether it's with friends or family. Food is, breaking bread, they say, right? That's just an essence of what humanity has sort of, had as a real underpinning to sort of our exchange of, our personal experience.
We're gonna wrap it up.
Oh,
Thanks for being here today and exploring this
always
idea
great to be.
of maybe the table as the technology, reverting back. And so for our listeners, thank you again for also being here. If you've been
Yeah,
listening along with our multiple episodes, welcome back. And if this is your first time stepping into Illuminate Being, we're glad you found your way here. And these conversations are just the beginning. So take what resonated, sit with it, maybe even try one small shift, and we got more coming your way. So stay with us.
great to be with you, Liz.
Bye.
Bye.